At this point, having done an overall tonal adjustment for the image using a levels adjustment layer, we want to look at the photograph for areas within the photograph, local areas where we need to either brighten or darken select parts of the picture. In order to be able to do that, you have to know how to select out those areas. Now, I should mention that there are a lot of different ways in Photoshop to do this. The method I'm going to show you has the advantage of being very forgiving of errors, and so it's a good first one to learn. So let's look at this picture and ask ourselves where in the photograph may we want to selectively lighten or darken a region. And if you recall from the previous adjustment, we set the midtones so that the bulk of the image looked pretty good. But we do have this area in the background that's more brightly illuminated, and it's a little too bright. It's competing for our attention. So it'd be nice if there were a way to select that out and darken it. Here's how you go about that. You're going to look over to the left, and you're going to see these two selection tools. The lasso tool, if I click on that, underneath of that is something called the polygonal lasso tool. Let's start with the lasso. Here, when I select the tool, if I click and drag, I am going to create a boundary, and anything within that boundary is now selected, and I can alter that separate from the rest of the image. To deselect, you hit Command D and your selection goes away. The other useful tool is the polygon tool, and that works a little bit differently. It's more suited to geometric, regularly edged areas, and if I click and now move my cursor, you see I have a line. If I click again, I will establish a corner point, click again, and eventually I come back up to my starting point. The icon changes and to that little new configuration, and if I click, I've now selected this more regular geometrical shape. So lasso tool, good for irregular boundaries, and the polygon tool is good for regularly edged geometrical selections. So let's think this through. We need this triangular area. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and carefully trace this out, kind of wobbling a little bit here and there, and I'd get an approximation, but probably it's not going to be very accurate. So I'm not going to use that. Instead, it would seem more appropriate to use the polygon tool. I'm going to go to one corner, click. I will pull over to another corner and click. And down here, and then back to my starting point. So I've selected out this triangular area. Now there's a little problem here. We have this little arc of the woman's head in the background, and we don't want that darkened along with the rest of that overbright area. So let's zoom in and figure out how to get her out of the selection area. Now she's not a geometrical form, she's a more organic shape, so I'm going to go to my lasso tool, and I want to find a way to take that part of the selection away. Turns out there's an additional way you can refine your selection areas by using either the Option key, which I'm clicking now, or the Shift key. When I hit Shift, notice that the cursor accrues a little plus sign. That means I can add to the selection. So this is what it would look like. If for some reason I wanted to add, I'm hitting Shift, and now that has allowed me to add to the selection. In this case, I want to subtract from the selection, so I'm going to hit Option, and I'll get that little minus sign. I'm going to trace around her head, come back near my starting point, and you can see how I've subtracted out that part of the selection. So again, to review, to make selections, we're going to be focusing on the lasso tool and the polygon tool, and you can add to or subtract from your selections by using additionally the Shift key or the Option key. Shift to add, Option to take away from a selection using either the polygon or the lasso.